in every way, shape, and form, and has been a total supporter of everything we do for veterans. In the 82nd legislative session, she fought for a number of bills that help veterans. Senate Bill 1838 dedicated housing funds to serve veterans and their families, supported legislation to protect the Fund for Veterans Assistance by restricting its use solely to providing services for veterans, passed Senate Bill 1796 creating the Texas Coordinating Council on Veterans Services to provide a much-needed forum for synchronizing, collaborating veteran services throughout the state, which I discussed earlier, and that is the theme of this summit, is to collaborate amongst all the organizations that help veterans, and that's what that coordinating council does and allows us to do. So I would like to introduce Senator Vander Putte, our greatest Texas advocate for veterans.
How are you? Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Good morning. I am truly humbled to be with you again, and thank you for that great welcome. As the daughter of a Korean War veteran, I know if my daddy could see this, he'd be really, really happy. But this morning, he's got, I think it's the Catholic War Veterans group this morning. Yeah, I never know with Daddy which vet group he's going to be at in San Antonio. But I know that the sacrifices that you and your families have made to protect our freedoms. And so every day when I'm in the Texas Senate, or I get to speak freely, or I see a newspaper that freedom of the press and people being able to speak out, I know it's because those men and women who have donned the uniform generation after generation have paid that price. And I have to tell you that words alone cannot express the honor and the respect that Texans have for you. We can't say enough, but we hope that our actions will convey that respect. Let me tell you a little bit. I was glad to see that Jim Pitts was here, and you know he's from Waxahachie, right? Y'all know where, anybody here up from that area? Okay, well you know the story though about somebody coming from the north, because folks do want to come to Texas. As you know, we've grown in population over the last 10 years, enough so that all this redistricting problem is because we're adding 4 new congressional seats. While other states are losing seats, Texas is gaining. Well, anyway, there was somebody that was coming in from another state, and they were going through Jim Pitt's district, and they were hungry, so they stopped to get some burgers and fries. And they were confused because, well, I mean, how do you spell Waxahachie, right? It just looks like. So anyway, the family goes in and they're at the restaurant, pick up little lunch, burgers, fries, shake, you know, good stuff. And she goes up to the front to order, and the woman says, "Excuse me, how do you pronounce where we're at?" And the girl behind the counter says, "Excuse me, ma'am." She says, "How do you pronounce where we are at?" And she looked at her very patiently and she said, "Dairy Queen." Now, I'm always reminded about that with Jim Pitts. And that's the beauty of our state, right? We have names of our cities that come from that Native American heritage. We have the beautiful names like San Antonio, where I come from, and we've got all sorts of names that go back to our heritage and are named for people in history. And we are blessed because we've got so many Texans, so many regions. And that's also our challenge. Do you realize how effective TVC has to be in organizational structure to make sure that the veteran who's trying to access educational benefits in El Paso gets the same opportunities and information that someone is in, you know, Cajun country, Beaumont, Texas? I mean, it is hugely challenging. And I am so proud of this Veterans Commission. Under Tom and our chairman TP and our great commissioners, they have that direction and focus, and we share the same goal, absolutely the same goal, is that we want Texas to be the #1 state for active duty military and their families, and for veteran and their families. That's it. That's our goal, and that's what we're going to continue to do. I'm very excited. I'm really very pleased and blessed that Governor Dewhurst has repeatedly called on me to lead the Senate Veteran Affairs and Military Installations Committee. That committee's focus is just that. We are going to examine ways that our great state can continue to serve those who have served us. And I got to tell you, this is the first time I've had an opportunity to say thank you. Thank you to this wonderful coalition of veteran service organizations and not-for-profits and everybody who comes together, who were advocates, who help everybody else understand that the sacrifices our veterans have made. You know, the budget cuts that were originally proposed for TVC were horrendous. You see, we were caught in a shortfall. And so every agency, and that first budget that came out was just awful, awful. And through leadership that we had great friends in the Senate, great friends in the House that listened, but it was the statistics and the data that proved it up. It wasn't just the right thing to do. It wasn't the heartstrings. It wasn't our respect for every veteran. It was that return on investment that Jim Pitts talked about. And so together we minimized those budget cuts to veteran programs. We improved, of course, the housing and the higher education programs, and we really preserved that Veterans Assistance Fund by prohibiting the use of the fund for any other purpose than the grants that are needed to meet the needs of Texas veterans in local communities. And I gotta tell you, by y'all being focused and organized, we had a great legislative win. Last legislative session, for the 18 months before that, we met with coalition members who said, now that we've got the 100% property tax exemption for our 100% disabled veterans, we got to work on their spouses. And you came together, and that win to pass in November the constitutional amendment that allows the transferability of that 100% disabled veterans 100% tax exemption now to the spouse upon their passing was a real win. Thank you to you guys. Thank you so much. I wanted to talk a little bit because the reason that this group is so effective in whatever that you do is because you work on it early. You identify where we can do better, because we're not satisfied. We always have to keep chasing the top of the leaderboard, whether it's education and workforce. And I'm going to tell you that we have strong advocates, but the legislature is going to be different. We're going to lose many of the strong advocates. Senator Steve Ogden, himself a Naval Academy graduate and chairman of finance, has decided not to return to the legislature. I could also count on my dear friend Florence Shapiro on the educational side, particularly higher ed and education. She was chair of the education committee. I always could count on her. Those of you in the Dallas and the Plano area, thank you for keeping her on track. She is just wonderful, and said, what can I do to help? We also know that Lieutenant Governor David Dewhurst is running for higher office, and we will face the daunting task of balancing a budget without adequate state revenue. I mean, it was tough. We also know that what's happening in Washington, the depletion of federal resources, that Budget Deficit Reduction Act, we don't know how that's going to play out. We also know that there will be Department of Defense cuts, and you've heard many of those. What's that going to do to our active duty military as we switch and are heavier on technology? We have relied on those sorts of things in the past, and we know that number one, we already face, the Texas legislature faces 4 different lawsuits on school finance. So we're going to have some challenges in our legislature. And the need for veteran services will be different. Contrary to what many have said, we are so thankful and blessed. The war is over in Iraq. The war is over. But you and I know the war's not really over. Folks, the war's coming home. It's coming home. And nearly 1 million veterans will be entering the workforce over the next 5 years. And many of those veterans will have wounds to heal that you and I can't see, and that other folks can't see visibly. And that's why I promise to you that my committee will continue to examine the ways which we can help our warriors, our war fighters that are coming back home, that we can help them heal and be productive, gain a job, and have a life of dignity for themselves and their families. That's what we're going to focus on. And we're going to illustrate the continuing need for claims representation, something that TVC does. I mean, when you think about today's San Antonio Express News talks about the VA claims and the huge backlog. I'm going to tell you that TVC does more with less, but I'm going to go to the legislature and say, we need more, because we're going to have more claims. I mean, we have already 100,000 claims here on the backlog just in Texas, and that's that we do it right. It is that coming storm of claims. And so we need those counseling services so that our veterans get benefits that they're entitled to. And we have to examine the ways that we can help our women veterans. Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. Okay, I see my ladies back there. Because they're just differences. I gotta tell you, there's just differences. As my husband tells me, Pete Van Pute tells me, there's just differences. He tells me that I married him thinking I could change him, and that he married me thinking I'd never change. And we both were right, or wrong. I don't know, we really both were wrong. They're just differences. And the commonalities are there, but we need to make sure that those ladies, those very strong women, who have always been on the forefront, right? I mean, they're just on the backside, but they always have, they're out front, and we need to make sure that they're taken care of, that they get what they need. We know that we've got work to do. We will continue to monitor the implementation of our great veteran courts, something that we passed 2 sessions ago. I've got to tell you, there are 10 veteran courts up and running. That helps our veterans who run into some problems in the criminal justice system, with the help of the VA and our coordination here, to get to the core problem. They're fine when we went into combat theater. They come back and have issues. And I'm going to tell you, incarceration is not the solution. It's to make sure that we get to the core problem of what has been happening. And so we're going to try to improve whatever we can for veteran opportunities. Next session, I got to tell you, going to be a little tough. The House members, about 50%, or maybe more, it's not a good year for incumbents, will be pretty new. In other words, over half the House will have less than 2 terms. Now, I got to tell you, I worked in the House for 10 years, and that's why I have a lot of friends in the House. They call me House Broken. It took me until my 3rd session to really understand the budgeting process. I mean, you think about your state government, everything from agriculture to zoning. And we work in committees, and there's everything from public education to agriculture, I mean, just everything, utilities, water, education, transportation, criminal, I mean, everything you can think of. And so I'm there to always say, veterans, active duty military, military installations, working on encroachment issues. It's all about trying to fortify that. But I'm going to tell you, it's going to be a little difficult. So my plea to you is we're going to have a lot of new folks to make friends with. We may have as many as 5 new senators, and I'm going to tell you, out of 31, if you get 5 new, we just never have more than 1 or 2. But you got to understand, we're kind of an older crowd. The Senate, the big deal is on our laptops, it's all the pictures of the grandchildren. Status in the Senate is all about the grandkids. And I'm doing real well, by the way. We had 2 more this year. And so next session, we are going to continue to fight for actions, not just words. Because it's election time, folks. And I'm going to tell you, during election time, folks will tell you that you're important. Hold them accountable. Hold them accountable. It's not just words. Tell me what you're going to do. Don't just talk about it. And we've got to honor and respect you. You fought with so many. You've paid the price. And I'm just so pleased to be able to be in this position. I'm in awe of folks like Mr. Steele who lead the ESGR. First time I was on a military installation, okay, other than, when I was born at Madigan Hospital at Fort Lewis, and my daddy left the service, was I went as an employer on an ESGR trip to Fort Hood. I was a pharmacy, I'm still a pharmacist, by the way, but I had a pharmacy and medical clinic, and I went as an employer to go see what my employee did. That was in the early 80s. It stuck with me. And the work that they do, the work that you're going to do for women, the work that Sean does, and by the way, congratulations, and thank God you came back home from your tour of duty safe. I appreciate that. I mean, we want to make sure that we build on the victories we had. So victory number one, the state cuts were minimal for the Veterans Commission, but we got to do more because the work's going to be there. The claims are going to be there. You heard about our great win with the Department of Housing and Community Affairs, the Hazelwood Act, the transfer of benefits, the prohibiting of the Veterans Assistance Fund for anything else. Because I'm going to tell you, our state government loves to take stuff that's dedicated for one thing and kind of mosey it over in another column. And we said, not with this one. You're not doing that with this. And we know that we're going to continue with education and employment, coordination, private resources, higher education. We're going to examine the use of the Hazelwood Act, determine maybe doing some more resource centers for our higher education students. We're going to really very excited about something that's called our Commanders Council. Just like we've had the coordinating council here, our Commanders Council has had its first meeting. This year, the commanders of our military forces and installations to better communicate and to coordinate kind of with the legislature how we can best serve those who are on our installations now and serving, and as they transition to civilian life as well. And it's about their kids. So I got to tell you, I am thankful, I'm blessed. I feel that we still have a lot of work to do, but my promise to you is that those men and women in uniform never gave up on us back home. They have performed in every single war and conflict and done what we have asked them to do. And we're not going to give up on them or their kids. We're going to make sure that Texas remains that #1 state for veterans and their families. God bless you. Keep safe. Have a great, great seminar, and know that my door is always open. Gracias. Okay, I'm going to take a picture of y'all. Hold on, hold on. This is too good. I got to take a picture of y'all. Are you ready? Got it. Thank you.
Do you want to go that way?
Yeah. Oh, this is beautiful.
Here, give this to Ida. I want to thank Senator Van de Putte very, very much for all her support in the past and we know in the future.